Around 30 MPs will be in the House tomorrow to do that. And here's the Prime Minister at the podium. Let's listen in.
Bonjour tout le monde. I want to begin by recognizing that a lot of people have now been stuck at home for a week or more because of COVID-19. If that's starting to take a toll, it's understandable. But we can't afford to stop now. I want to be clear. Social distancing, physical distancing, is the single best way to keep the people around you safe. What does that mean? It means keeping 2 meters between yourself and someone else. It means avoiding groups. It means staying home as much as possible. If you choose to ignore that advice, if you choose to get together with people or go to crowded places, you're not just putting yourself at risk, you're putting others at risk too. Your elderly relative who's in a senior's home, or your friend with a pre-existing condition, our nurses and doctors on the front lines, our workers stocking shelves at a grocery store. They need you to make the right choices. They need you to do your part. We've all seen the pictures online of people who seem to think they're invincible. Well, you're not. Enough is enough. Go home and stay home. This is what we all need to be doing. And we're going to make sure this happens, whether by educating people more on the risks or by enforcing the rules if that's needed. Nothing that could help is off the table. Today, we're launching federal advertising campaigns. You'll see faces that you know and trust, people from our cultural sector getting out the recommendations from our healthcare workers. Not having heard this message won't be an excuse. We're reaching everyone. Listening is your duty, and staying home is your way to serve. Every day, there are more and more people who step up and heed this call. Just yesterday, Team Canada and the Canadian Paralympic team made the tough decision not to send athletes to the Olympic and Paralympic Games this summer. I know this is heartbreaking for so many people, athletes, coaches, staff, and fans. But this was absolutely the right call, and everyone should follow their lead. No matter who you are, if you're doing your part, I want to say thank you. You are saving lives. And when it gets hard, know that your government is right there with you. On Wednesday, we unveiled an $82 billion plan for people and businesses affected by the virus. If you're worried about making ends meet, we're putting more money in your pocket. If you own a small business, we're helping you bridge to better times. Tomorrow, the House of Commons will reconvene to pass emergency legislation and put this plan in motion. For farmers and people across the agri-food business, I know these are hard times too. So we're also opening up $5 billion in additional lending capacity. Starting today, farmers and producers can apply through Farm Credit Canada for the support they need to keep food growing and get it onto our tables. On that note, I want to say thank you to people right across the entire food sector. Day in and day out, you grow, transport, and stock the food that feed our families. Last week, we also announced a plan to mobilize industry so our hospitals have the medical support and equipment they need. Later today, I will have a call with the First Ministers to discuss our continued coordination on quarantine and self-isolation. We're working together to ensure that everyone has what they need, whether that's equipment for testing or medical supplies. This evening, the Premiers and I will also talk about continuing to move forward with measures to support families and small businesses to ensure our economy rebounds. For Canadians stranded abroad, we're working with airlines to get people home. People should be returning by commercial means while they're still available. Air Canada, WestJet, Air Transat, and Sunwing all have flights this week. As of today, we've secured authorizations for Air Canada to operate 3 flights for this week for Canadians in Peru, and there will be 2 more flights in the coming days from Morocco. We've also helped secure an Air Canada flight from Spain, as well as Air Transat flights, including 2 from Honduras and 1 each from Ecuador, El Salvador, and Guatemala. If you're a Canadian abroad, register with the government now so we can send you updates and contact you. You need to do this if you haven't done it already. Depuis le début de cette crise, on utilise tous les outils à notre disposition pour gérer la situation.
In our toolbox to manage the situation. We're very lucky. Canadian innovators are among the best in the world, and they want to be part of the solution.
On investit
We're investing $275 million in research on COVID-19 and the development of vaccines. Vaccination and antiviral treatments are options that we must look at. We're seeing this with flu vaccines to stop people falling sick. They protect the most vulnerable and to make sure that fewer and fewer people go to the ER. Today, I'm announcing that we'll be investing $192 million to directly support the creation and the production of vaccines here in Canada. We'll be funding a long-term solution against COVID-19 here at home. We'll be signing an agreement with AbCellera of Vancouver to support their work designed to treat and to prevent COVID-19. We're also working with Medicago from Quebec to produce and test vaccines at the same time. We're also earmarking money to the University of Saskatchewan for the development of vaccines and clinical tests as well. Canada needs the necessary capacity to produce treatments on a mass basis as quickly as possible. We're also investing in the National Research Board in Montreal.
We're providing $192 million to directly support vaccine development and production in Canada. We're investing in a long-term solution to COVID-19 right here at home. Our government will be signing an agreement with Vancouver-based AbCellera to support their work on drugs to prevent and treat COVID-19. We're also working with Quebec City-based Medicago for vaccine testing and production. At the same time, we're providing funding for the University of Saskatchewan's Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization for development and clinical trials. Once there are promising options, Canada needs the capacity to mass-produce treatments as quickly as possible. That's why we're investing in the National Research Council of Canada's facility in Montreal to prepare for the rollout. These are critical steps forward. But we have to remember that vaccines won't be ready overnight. They will take months to develop and test. So while that's happening, we need to work to mitigate the impacts of this virus. And luckily, we have the tools we need right here at home. Blue Dot in Toronto was among the first in the world to identify the spread of COVID-19, coming in 9 days ahead of the World Health Organization's public warning. We've signed a contract to use this Canadian software to model the disease. It will help us track and therefore slow the spread. Minister Baines has also sent a call to action to every university, college, polytechnic, and CEGEP in the country. Their labs have the resources and expertise to be part of this fight. We've asked them to identify equipment they've got, like masks and ventilators. At the same time, we're looking at innovative solutions they can be part of, including 3D printing of medical supplies. Many institutions have already stepped up, and many more will do the same. If you need more information, please go to buyandsell.gc.ca. We need all hands on deck. Nous demandons à chaque université.
We're asking all universities, colleges, and CEGEP across the country to give us all the masks and ventilators they have, or to suggest other ways they might help through 3D printing, for example. Many of these facilities have already stepped up, and many more are thinking about doing so now. For more information, please consult buyandsell.gc.ca. We all have a role to play in the fight against COVID-19. Even if you're not a paramedic or a researcher, you can save lives by staying at home as much as possible, by keeping a distance of at least 2 meters with others if you go out. That makes the whole difference, makes all the difference, rather. That's how we can protect ourselves, our nurses, our physicians, and our healthcare professionals who are taking care of those who need care. We need to follow the recommendations from our public health agencies. We have to trust them, and we must listen to them. Yesterday, I had a part of my speech where I talked to 2 kids directly. I have a message for our seniors today. We all have loved ones who are at home, who are very, very vulnerable. Call them. Tell them that you love them. I'm thinking myself of my father-in-law, Sophie's father, who's undergoing treatment for cancer and has been for several months. We don't see him very often, but today is his birthday. Happy birthday, Jean-Jean. You're 78 today. Happy birthday. Think of our elders, think of our loved ones, and do everything we can to keep them safe. This is how we will put a break on the spread of COVID-19. Thank you for doing your bit. And please know that our government will continue to work day and night to support you. Together, we will get through this. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister. It's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News. You said that a vaccine will take months, despite funding and assistance that's being announced today and that the government has already put in place. What immediate and specific actions is the federal government doing to increase testing capabilities and to reduce the testing backlogs that people are facing right across the country?
As we said on vaccines, we have moved forward on investing in a number of companies to accelerate their movement towards clinical trials and eventual production of a vaccine. In the meantime, we are increasing our testing capacity every single day. Many companies in Canada are increasing their production. We're working with labs across the country to accelerate the arrival of testing results as well. We recognize that there is a significant load on the system. We are looking at technological and concrete solutions that will accelerate this process, because we recognize that mass testing is a key part of the path forward. Par rapport aux vaccins,
on the issue of vaccines, we're assisting companies who are approaching the clinical test stage to work more quickly, but that's going to take several months, of course. For the time being, we know that testing is essential. We're trying to invest, and we are investing in accelerating production and the availability of tests, but we're also working to expedite or to increase or to reduce rather the wait time for results. The system is a bit overloaded, but we have to do more, because we know that testing is an integral part of how we will actually put a break and stop the spread of COVID-19.
Sitting at home right now watching this press conference, who cannot afford to continue paying their rent or for themselves or for their businesses. Why hasn't your government done more to specifically help renters?
Yeah. We know that there are significant pressures on Canadians right across the country who are facing bills coming in, who are facing pressures on caring for their families. That is why we are working extremely quickly to get money out the door into the pockets of Canadians during this extraordinary time. We recognize there are hundreds of thousands of Canadians out there who are applying for EI benefits online. What we're working through, including with the step of recalling Parliament tomorrow, is a legislative package that will allow us to move forward even quicker on getting money into the pockets of Canadians who need it right across the country.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada.
Hello, Mr. Trudeau, Christian Noël. You mentioned the Olympic Games earlier. Now, your message to Canadians and to athletes, but also to the organizing committee, is it appropriate to organize an international event at this point in time? It looks like it's going to go forward. I know there's a lot of concern about international gatherings. We recognize that Prime Minister Abe of Japan is very, very well aware of the challenge. The Canadian Olympic Committee has decided that we won't attend the Olympic Games this summer, and this was announced yesterday. But I'm encouraging everybody who's thinking about organizing gatherings of thousands of people to not do it. It's important not only here in Canada, but across the rest of the world. Stay home, please. If we look at what's happening here in Canada, people on the internet, for example, seem not to be worried about the virus. They seem to feel invincible. First of all, I'd like to know how shocked you are by this. And secondly, does this mean that the borders or interprovincial borders will have to be closed? Have you talked to premiers about this? Well, of course, we will be talking to the provinces this evening. We have to continue to coordinate our effort, to coordinate our communications as well. Unfortunately, as we've all seen, there are people who seem to feel invincible, who continue to go outside. I understand that the temperatures are warming up. People want to go outside, but it's not the time to do that. You must keep your distance. People must stay at home as much as possible. We're not just talking about our own health. We're talking about putting in danger our seniors' health and endangering our health professionals' health as well. We need to follow the advice from experts, and the advice is that you should stay at home as much as possible. Keep your distance with your neighbours as well.
How exactly will your government enforce social distancing? Can you spell out exactly what that will look like?
We are going to be speaking with the premiers this evening and talking about ways we can coordinate. We recognize that many communities, many provinces have declared states of emergency. They have taken measures to close certain public places. There is more that can be done. There is more that needs to be done around messaging, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But every step of the way, if we see that measures aren't being taken up properly, that aren't being followed, we will look at different measures that could be necessary to enforce these rules. We'd rather not, and we know that millions of Canadians are doing their part, but those who are not doing their part are putting at risk everyone else, including the eventual recovery of our economy and the well-being of millions of Canadians. So we're going to continue to look very carefully at what could be next steps as we move forward.
Can you spell out exactly what kind of enforcement measures you're looking at the national level?
I can tell you that we haven't taken anything off the table, from the Emergencies Act to new measures or existing measures under the Quarantine Act. There are significant tools that are at our disposal. But like I said, we are impressing upon Canadians to do this of their own will, to understand that individuals can and must do their part to keep us all safe and to ensure that we come through this in the best way possible.
Should all provinces and territories close their borders?
I will be speaking with the premiers tonight about measures that we can take as a country to move forward, and I look forward to that conversation.
Prime Minister, Ryan Templeton with the National Post. I'm wondering, this week will be the end of your 14-day self-isolation. Are you planning to resume a quasi-public schedule? Are you planning to leave the House?
As many people are, I'm listening to the advice of experts. I recognize that there is still a week to go in my self-isolation, and we're going to continue doing that. Those decisions on what next will be taken in the right way, depending on what public health says. But certainly, I am going to make sure that we continue to follow all recommendations of public health officers, particularly around staying at home wherever possible, and self-isolation and social distancing, which means keeping 2 meters apart from each other.
In terms of the messaging, you know, we've seen people at beaches, we've seen people out on trails clustered together, we've seen people out at large parties together. Do you think it's just a question of people not getting the message? Because you're talking a lot about messaging today.
I think people need to get the message that this isn't just about them. This is about their neighbors. This is about vulnerable seniors. This is about health workers who are on the front lines trying to keep us all safe. Canadians can and must do their part to keep us all safe. When we see images of people out enjoying the sunshine in large groups, that is extremely concerning, because because they are not just putting themselves at risk, they are putting everyone else at risk. We need to slow and stop the spread of this virus if we are going to come through this strongly as a country without losing too many of our loved ones. Every single Canadian has a responsibility to engage in keeping their distance, in staying home whatever possible, and ensuring that those who have to go out for essential services and to keep us healthy and alive and fed are not at risk themselves. Je pense que c'est frustrant.
Well, I think it's frustrating for many Canadians who are stuck at home. It's very frustrating to see that others are not listening. They're not following the recommendations. It's frustrating for many people, in fact. Many people who are seeing that some people are not following the rules.
Listening to medical advice and staying home for their safety, to watch other people out there putting not just themselves at risk, but everyone who is staying home at risk as well.
Merci beaucoup. On va maintenant passer aux questions par téléphone. Modérateur, c'est à vous.
Thank you, merci. The first question is from Brian Lilly of the Toronto Sun. La première question est de Brian Lilly du Toronto Sun. La parole est à vous. Please go ahead, sir. Your line is open.
Prime Minister, I'm wondering if you can tell us, you keep being asked about the Emergencies Act and you seem hesitant. Why are you hesitant, and what extra powers would the Emergencies Act or Quarantine Act give you that you currently don't have?
The Quarantine Act is already in place, and it gives us significant tools. One of the key elements of the Emergencies Act is that it is an override over the provinces. It takes powers that are normally only in the hands of provinces or even municipalities and puts them at the federal level. That's why we've been working closely and coordinating, watching closely as provinces have invoked their Emergencies Act, which has been an important step in fighting the spread of this virus. It's also why we will certainly be talking about the Federal Emergencies Act at the Premier's meeting this evening to make sure that we all understand what tools each different order of government has and where we might need to do more.
Thank you, merci. La question suivante est de Hélène Buzetti, Le Devoir.
Hélène Buzetti, Le Devoir.
Hélène Buzetti, Le Devoir. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Oui, Monsieur Trudeau, justement,
Mr. Trudeau,
ordre d'idée, je sais que vous allez
along the
parler à
same
vos
lines.
homologues, mais vous
I
allez
know you've talked to your counterparts, but I'm sure you've already talked to them. Are any provinces asking you to, in fact, invoke the Emergencies Act? Well, no province has actually made a formal demand for the invocation of the Emergencies Act. That's part of our discussions, but given that part of the Emergencies Act gives powers that are normally at the provincial level to the federal government. Well, this is a conversation we have to have with the provinces, if that is to be done.
Thank you, merci. The last question is from Maura Forrest, Politico. La question suivante est de Maura Forrest, Politico. La parole est à vous. Your line is now open. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Prime Minister. In the United States, California and New York have enacted lockdown measures at the state level. You're not ready yet to invoke the Emergencies Act, but would you support individual provinces enacting similar measures in Canada?
We know that provinces and cities are looking at what next steps they can take. We, of course, will support them in their decision-making, in the powers that they have, recognizing that many of them, if not all of them, have invoked the Emergencies Act at their provincial level. We will continue to coordinate and make sure that they have the backing of the federal government where necessary. We will continue to monitor closely this situation, to work with experts across Canada and indeed around the world on everything we need to do to keep Canadians safe. But even as we do that, with all the levers of governments and regulations and powers, fundamentally it comes down to citizens making smarter choices, choosing to stay home, choosing to self-isolate, choosing to keep their distance from each other, not going out and putting at risk people who have to be out for essential reasons in our hospitals, in our our food supply, in our pharmacies. These are the things that people need to be doing. These are things, unfortunately, that not everyone is doing yet, and it is why it is so important for Canadians to step up and do what they can, not just to keep themselves safe, but to keep their neighbours and the rest of us safe as well. Merci tout le monde.
All right, Peter Van Dusen watching along with you, the latest